dark clouds had suddenly appeared over the mine, and lightning struck from the sky, as if some evil force was awakening. At that moment, an elderly man suddenly drives through the gate, rushing towards home, but behind him, an invisible monster rushes forward, and flips his car over. Fortunately, the elderly man survives, and he's not far from home. He prepares to flip a switch and wait for the monster to attack. He steps on the pedal, and a machine in the distance begins to hum. Strangely, the machine malfunctions. The old man has no choice but to rush into his house, and hide his ghost-catching device. Then he sits in a carefully designed chair, using himself as bait to catch the monster. Eventually, the monster starts to materialize, and his detector sounds an alarm. He hastily tries to operate the machine to take down the monster with him, but tragically, he dies, and the monster escapes. Meanwhile, Kelly, who lives in another city, suddenly receives news of her father's death. As a single mother under financial pressure, and prompted by her landlord, she has no choice but to move back into her father's house. Strangely enough, the group had just entered the house when an earthquake suddenly occurred. They had to crawl under the table to take cover. This allowed Finn to spot the detector. However, he did not yet know the function of this device, but by evening, the detector suddenly lit up. The chess pieces by the window also suddenly fell. Curious, Finn rearranged the chess pieces neatly, but by morning, the chess pieces suddenly moved forward one step. Finn found it strange but was curious enough to move the chess piece forward a step. Soon after, his mother called him to go to school, but while he was in class, another earthquake occurred here. It was then that he met the seismology teacher. It turns out that he came to this small town to investigate why, despite it not being in an earthquake zone, it still experiences strange earthquakes. After school, Finn and his newly met classmate went on an adventure together. The two went to a nearby abandoned mine, but it was only when he entered it that he discovered that what was hidden behind the torn cloth were lifelike reliefs. No one knows where these reliefs came from, only that there are rumors of ghosts here, and that the miners who once worked here all died. Soon after, Finn finally returned home. The oddity of the chessboard caught his attention. Just as he was about to continue, the detector lit up again. Following its guidance, he walked downstairs, and stopped in the lobby on the first floor. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a puzzle on the floor. After he completed it, a ghost-catching device appeared right before his eyes. Since he was unclear about the function of the device, he took it to school to ask for the teacher's help. Paul looked at the device, and suddenly remembered a legendary tale. It turns out there was once a group of people who specialized in catching ghosts, and this device was the famous ghost-catching device. So, the two hit it off immediately, deciding to test whether the ghost catcher really worked. Unexpectedly, just as Paul pressed the switch, a demon suddenly appeared, and ran straight back into the mine. Huge ghost is gnawing on the gas pipes. He seems to really enjoy the taste. Just then, he suddenly notices a child nearby. He launches an attack towards them. Luckily, Finn and his friend have ghost-catching guns, although at first he couldn't control the direction well, and damaged some nearby pipes. Finn eventually hits the target. Unfortunately, since this is their first ghost-catching attempt, their coordination is not smooth, leading the operation to end in failure. Then the two of them successfully hitch a ride in their brother's car. Thus, the three of them chase the ghost into the city. When they arrive, the ghost is examining a fire hydrant up and down, seemingly finding it more appetizing. But just as he is about to feed, Finn and the others catch up. He has no choice but to continue fleeing, not realizing that Finn's handling skills are improving. After just a few rounds, he manages to control the ghost with the ghost-catching gun. Meanwhile, his good brother maneuvers the ghost catcher to the front. Unfortunately, a car suddenly driving towards them disrupts their capture plan. The ghost seizes the opportunity to break free, and runs towards the direction of an abandoned mine. The area gradually becomes an open field, creating a perfect environment for Finn and his friends to make a capture. Thus, Finn again controls the ghost with the ghost-catching gun, and his companion uses the ghost catcher to seal the ghost away. They finally succeeded in catching their first ghost. However, they have now arrived in front of the mine. The older brother also remembers the strange noises he had heard before, but just then, the police arrive. Due to their earlier actions damaging city infrastructure, they are detained. At this moment, Finn suddenly remembers the old ghost-catching team, so he makes a call to inform them of the situation. But before they could talk much, the police abruptly cut off the communication. Worse still, although their teacher and mother come to take them home later, they are not allowed to take the ghost-catching equipment with them. Back at home, Finn tells his mother that there really are ghosts in the world, but she does not believe him. Meanwhile, Paul goes shopping at the supermarket, only to unexpectedly discover that the items there have mutated. Marshmallow suddenly came to life. It curiously looked around at everything in front of it, but when Paul reached out his finger, the marshmallow suddenly bit him. Paul finally realized something was wrong, but it was just a moment's hesitation, and more marshmallows began to come alive. They seemed to have souls of their own, wanting to try everything, even burning each other with flames. Paul had just taken a few steps, when he suddenly saw a monster recklessly eating food. He intended to sneak away quietly, but the monster had very sensitive hearing. After making a few strange noises, the monster charged towards him. Although Paul managed to get into his car, the monster also jumped onto his car. Meanwhile, on the other side, to investigate the frequent paranormal activities, Finn and others decided to thoroughly inspect the mine. As they descended to the mine's floor, a huge statue appeared before them. Clearly, this statue was the legendary monster, an embodiment of evil that could devour human souls. After careful observation, they discovered a string of numbers nearby, which seemed to represent some kind of prophecy. Finn's grandfather was once a member of a ghost hunting squad, but as the number of ghosts in the world dwindled, the members of the ghost hunting squad had to part ways. Only the grandfather discovered this magical statue, and based on the fable inscribed on it, he became the sole guardian sealing away the monster. However, due to old age, he could no longer maintain the seal, and each assault by the monster would break part of the protection. That's why earthquakes frequently occurred in the town, and even some monsters appeared. When Finn returned home, unexpectedly, the monster's minions had taken control of his mother's body. body. Clearly, they intended to use a ritual for resurrection. At that moment, the monster's assaults grew fiercer, and the earthquakes became more frequent. As the mother headed towards the mines, Finn was shocked to discover the yard filled with ghost hunting equipment. This was a mechanism set up by his grandfather before his death. But now, with the mother controlled by the monster, they had no choice but to head to the lab to prepare for fighting the monster's resurrection. It was then the mother met Finn's teacher, a man and a woman, just right to assist in the monster's resurrection. As they reached the underground mine, Finn and his companions were ready. With the start of the resurrection ritual, suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck from the sky. Finn's mother and Paul turned into beasts. Then the monster crawled out from the graveyard, releasing countless ghosts. The sky darkened and thick clouds gathered over the mine. At this moment, Finn decided to distract the enemy, to facilitate the actions of others. Just as the monster thought Finn was a sacrificer, the ghost hunting equipment quietly approached underneath the beast that was Finn's mother. Since the monster's power had not fully recovered, his mother actually transformed back from the beast. Afterward, they drove back home, preparing for the final battle there. But just as Finn was ready, the machinery was suddenly sabotaged by a marshmallow ghost. On the other side, under the monster's manipulation, magic engulfed a companion nearby, and turned them into a beast. Thus, the monster revealed its true form again, ready to eliminate the humans before it. Just as they despaired, the former ghost hunting squad reappeared and trapped the monster in place. Finn seized the opportunity. While commanding his mother to step on a trap at the doorway, he activated the ghost hunting gun. But the monster was too powerful. Just as they were about to be overwhelmed, the grandfather's spirit suddenly appeared. It turned out he had been accompanying Finn all along, and now was his final resting place. Even if destroying the monster meant his soul would be scattered, he had to fulfill this mission. Finally, the monster was resealed underground, and Finn's ghost hunting team achieved victory.